Kasper from X-Team about Scrum Agile.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about the delay. Oh, this is very loud. I normally talk loud. I hope everybody can hear me and understand me. Yes, this session is going to be in English, so I hope that's fine. The title is using Scrum Agile in remote development. And now we're all here. Yeah, my name is Kasper Myram. I work as a team lead for a company called X-Team. I've been in DevOps and engineering for almost 20 years. I've been working with open source for 16 years and Drupal for 8 or 9 years. I forget. A long time. It seems like forever. And also, I've been involved in Scrum projects for at least 5 years. I should say Scrum projects, but I'll get back to that. And I'm a Scrum Master certified. So I want to thank you for coming. It's a small select group, and I hope I can satisfy your curiosity. What I'm going to look at today is, first of all, what is Scrum Agile? I'm gonna call it Scrum from now on. I hope the purists don't mind. So we just have one name for it. So first of all, how many of you work with Scrum on a daily basis in Scrum projects? Less than half. Okay. How many work remote? Okay. This is semi-remote. I sit outside the office. Then I'm gonna go through Scrum just a little bit, so we all have the same baseline. I'm also gonna talk about what is it we need when we do remote work. What are the advantages of doing Scrum when we're in a remote setting? And also, because this is a small closed group and nobody tells anybody, we will also look a little bit at the drawbacks, because there are some. And at the end, if time allows, we'll look a little bit on at some tools that I like. So, first of all, Scrum. I write Scrum Agile is the proper word. The Scrum is based on the Agile Manifesto. How many have seen this before? So even if you don't work with, okay, this is the Agile Manifesto. This is sort of the commandments that rules Agile. What we want is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Yeah, we're humans. We work together. We don't let the processes and the tools rule anything. And we want working software over comprehensive documentation. Instead of writing everything down, let's get some code out there. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Because everybody knows you can always just talk with the customer and you're right away totally in agreement with what is going to be done, what you have done, and what you imagine being done. That was a little bit ironic. And responding to change over following a plan. See, this is where it gets pretty Scrum. You look at what you're actually doing instead of saying, well, this is the plan, and we want to do this, but you know, somebody gets sick or things change. That's what we want to respond to, not the plan. So again, this is the Agile Manifesto. It's 4 very, very profound principles, and it's a good guiding light, a beacon to go towards. I think it's probably overreaching quite a bit, because this says nothing about how we work on a daily basis. But what is it a project needs? It needs the clearly defined product, the clearly defined responsibilities, the clearly defined processes, the clearly defined measurements, fault prevention, everything, and this is never something that's going to be in place 100% at the beginning of a project. I mean, if someone has ever experienced that, please say now. You will be the first one in the world, I think. We need Scrum. And why is Scrum good? Why is it that it can help bend these two realities or the agile principles and the reality toward each other? It's because it's a framework. It's a superset of agile. And I'm just going to read it out loud because Scrum has the ability to help you organize project work and add structure to help you achieve your goals. And I know that's also a big promise, but it does. I tell you. Because it's a methodology, it's a framework, it has some tools that help us. And let's look at what is it we want in remote work. What is it that signifies remote development? Freedom. It says here, this is a remote developer if he lived today. When we assess the methodologies that help us in remote development, we have to look at this, the remote developer. I don't know every remote developer in the world, but I know that the ones that I work with are extremely skilled and competent. They are both generalists, domain area specialists. They're excellent communicators. They're very focused on their work, not the politics. And they are able to and eager to work and manage themselves, work for themselves and manage themselves. And most importantly, they have a life outside of work. Where does Scrum fit the remote worker? Do anybody know this guy? That's Bill Lumberg. That's your generic, nasty manager, your PM, the one who comes to your cubicle in the office and hover over you and just ask you, so where is the report? Where's the work? So what are you doing? Sticks his nose in everything and probably will tell you, well, probably you shouldn't be doing that. He is the antithesis to remote work. So when we get down to it, in Scrum, we have four basic ceremonies. It's the daily stand-up, it's the grooming, it's the demo, and the retro. All the other work, like collaborating with your team members, talking with the product owner, the customer, about the work you're doing, all of that, you don't have to sit in that cubicle and worry about when he gets, when he stops by to harass you. it's that we have the constant tracking of progress. That means the documentation of your work is always in place. I think that sometimes you can't even do your work without documenting it. So everybody on your team can see where you are, how far you've come, and probably also what's missing, because that's the documentation you make for yourself. That's the notes, the small comments you make. It can be in your commits, or it can be in a more formal tool. We'll get back to that later. But you will always, you will have a very updated progress status. So like I said, we had the 4 ceremonies, which are sort of the cornerstone of the Scrum process. Most teams I've heard of and worked in do it at that exact time, at one fixed time. But we're already using tools, like I said, to communicate with each other. So we don't have to do it in sync. We don't have to do it synchronously. We can do it asynchronously. We can do it on demand. So there are tools now. I work with them every day that polls your Scrum status every morning. Because our team is worldwide, 10 o'clock is different for everybody. But the customer is on the west coast of the US, so during the day, everybody will, everybody's morning Scrum status will be polled and then pooled together, so you will have a collective morning Scrum status from everybody to the entire team. I think a tool like that helps relieve the stress, all the uncertainties, and a practical issue like getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning just to do a stand-up. You can do it with the other, but I would say that's good to have those ceremonies at a fixed time. The last point, I think, is really the main thing for a developer in Scrum. It's a low fixed scope. What's a low fixed scope? Well, everybody works in sprints in Scrum, so you will always have a very near horizon. It's not a project that needs to be delivered in 6 months. You have a 2-week horizon all the time, or a month, or 1 week. I would say most Scrum projects work in 2-week sprints. So you get to finish your work pretty soon and pretty quickly. And that is quite important, I think, when you work remote, that you don't have something that you can postpone. Since we're organizing and managing a lot of it ourselves, you have to have some rules and regulations in place, like a Scrum framework to help us manage things. Also because we work in a team. All right. Scrum works great all over the world, like I said. We have team members in on all continents. And even if people move around, you just change the time zone. So most of the things don't change. It's still a 2-week sprint. The Scrum is still 10 a.m. wherever you are. Well, it's 3 o'clock in Europe, but that doesn't matter. You have the fixed points, and it works wherever you are. You don't have to check into an office. And I really see Scrum being the advantage for us as remote developers, most definitely. And what I really, really, really like about Scrum, and what I see, my experience, this is my experience, Scrum is culturally agnostic, and for me that means you don't have to get used to or bring a certain culture into a Scrum project. So I come from Sweden. I live there now. I don't come from Sweden. I come from Denmark. And it's two very close countries, but they're very different work cultures. So for a couple of years, I worked in an office before I started working remote. And one of the things that really surprised me was 10 o'clock every morning, everybody got up from their desk and left. And I could see they went to the coffee machine. But I was thinking, okay, what's going on now? And people was looking at me as like, it's now. 10 o'clock, you go and have coffee. And that same pattern repeats itself in the afternoon. And you do that, or you are not a part of the workplace. You will not be very popular in your team. I was a little bit astounded, but not as much as another aspect, which was that when you hit 11:59 and you were in a meeting and you were mid-sentence, everybody got up and left because at 12 o'clock, lunch. And I was really, really staggered. It was, what? We have a serious discussion about a serious and important issue in the project, and you just leave? And they looked at me like, don't you understand, this is lunchtime? So this is just, for me, moving like 50 kilometers to another country, a totally different culture. I've never seen that in Scrum, especially when working remote. Well, we'll save it for later. But for me, that was one of the very, very nice things, that people can still have their culture and work in a global team. So I also said, yeah, there are a few drawbacks. I mean, it probably sounds all great, but I have to say that it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Freedom, yeah, but it's really, really important to remember that when you work remote and you work in a flexible framework like Scrum, there's a lot of self-management, and you have to find your own schedule. You have to find your own rhythm, how you want to plan. Of course, there's these fixed boundaries, like a 2-week sprint is this, and your workload is described. But I would say it's not for everybody. So the people I work with in the office were everybody. They were very, very comfortable with working in an office. When I talked to them about working remote, they looked at me like I had fallen off the planet or gone to the moon or something. Because what are you going to do when you don't have that schedule? Every morning you drive in your car or by train to an office, and you meet your colleagues, and everything is very, very safe, and you know exactly what's going on there. And then you drive home at night and say, well, I like the flexibility. But I will also admit that sometimes it can be hard when you have screaming kids and you want to mow the lawn or something else. You have to be careful that you make sure to adhere to a schedule. That is important. Another thing when it comes to the freedom part, I think many implementations, I'll get back to it later, but some managers can, or senior people, at least some of the ones with the responsibility at the top, they get a little bit twitchy with all this self-management, because maybe for some of them it means, so I don't get to make all the calls and make all the decisions anymore, and when I don't see you, how can I be sure that you're doing something? And maybe they get cold feet. Oh, Scrum was such a nice thing on slides, but now that we're doing it, what am I doing? Did I have to change anything? You see that managers do get nervous about it. One of the drawbacks is Scrum doesn't talk about code. Scrum doesn't care about code. We could be making candles or something else, maybe not candles, but it has nothing to do with code. And I've worked in projects where they just forgot that part. I was just a regular team member, but it was staggering. It's like, so how do we manage code? How do we set up a repository for code? What kind of code? What language? How do we deploy everything? And flicking through the Scrum manual, oh, it doesn't say anything about that. You have to find something. I mean, in Drupal, it's pretty nice because we get a lot of things through standards. But if you're doing something greenfield, you really have to look for a standard. I mean, there's all these asterisk DD driven development to choose from. There's probably one there on the shelf that would fit, or do best practice. If you have been doing code for a long time, you should have a good idea of what it is. Scrum will not help you with code in that sense. And these are some of the places where Scrum projects go sour. Actually, it's both in projects that are in an office and remote work, but the bad implementation. Like I said, people thought that Scrum would help them with code, but I've also seen projects where people wouldn't groom tickets or would forget about sprints. This is my opinion, but you have to do at least the basic Scrum implementation, or it will not work for you. You will not get the value you thought. You can do sprints, but you're not doing a Scrum project. Or you can do a backlog and forget the rest, but then it's probably you should have looked at Kanban or something else, but you're not doing Scrum. I would say you have to do the minimal implementation. And again, the management, it's really, really, really important that they are on the same page. I've heard a lot of stories. I haven't experienced myself, thank God, but I've heard from others where management, after a while, totally pulled the plug and wanted to go back to the old-fashioned kind of project management. And that was detrimental, and teams were destroyed, and projects were delayed for years because of that. Make sure management understands what they're saying yes to before you start out with the Scrum. And I mean, that goes even further, I would say, in remote development. I didn't see a lot of hands when I asked for who works as a remote developer. So it's still just past the infancy, I would say. But it's maturing. But the knowledge about it, I would say, is still lacking a little bit. And it works great in some places, but the general knowledge about it could be better. And that brings me onto the lack of knowledge of what Scrum is. When you think that yeah, I'm a Scrum Master and I can be a product owner and a developer and the guy tending to the servers at the same time. It doesn't work like that. Or you're doing the grooming totally wrong. You want to put down hours and instead of points, because you think that is the correct way. Of course, everybody in a team needs to be sure. I just got a time. Have to know exactly what's going on, and it's like you can't have one person knowing everything, a Scrum Master, and expecting everybody else, and that leads to the lack of resources. You have to make sure that you're applying all the things that a Scrum project needs, not only all the principles and the way of organizing stuff, but also the roles, the persons. And I wanted something in Spanish, and this is what I know. Scrum es un queso. It takes time to mature. Your first 3, 5, maybe even 8, 10 sprints will not be as you want them to be. And that's, especially in the startup phase, really, really hard. And make sure that you acknowledge that, oh, we maybe implemented it bad. Let's check to see if management still is on our side. Have we got all the knowledge? Have we got all the resources? Make it mature instead of... It is different from other process methodologies. That's my opinion. And I think it's a cheese. It tastes great. It's not the smell, it tastes great. So I've very little time, so just to look at some tools that help us doing Scrum in a remote setting. I don't know how many of you have seen these sprint boards, but in all the cool places, they do it with Post-it notes and they write on whiteboards or actually on glass. So everybody on the other side, when they walk past the project room, they can see, oh, they got a cool sprint board. That is, of course, also in electronic version. Wow, cool. How many use a tool for project management? You all know these tools? Okay, then I can do it quickly. Trello, I like it. It's Kanban, yeah, I know, but you can throw some plugins at it and it will work. It's free, so it's really easy to get started with. Or if you have to spin something up quickly. If you have a big wallet and a lot of resources, go for the Atlassian solution. I don't own any stock in Atlassian, but I really, really like it. We work for them, right? Oh shit, okay. So my company has some relation, full disclosure, but I really like it. And I've worked with it for quite a number of years now. And I really recommend it. It does everything. Kanban, Scrum, does it have Prince 2? It makes you coffee, whatever. It has everything. Basecamp, I call it the tool for hipsters. It's one of the first ones and it's really cool. I haven't seen it for years, but I'm told it's still cool. So I would give it an honorary mention here. And GitHub. You throw Waffle on top of it, and you have an excellent sprint tools. And many probably already have GitHub as their code repository, so it's an easy step. So I would just suggest, this works excellent in a remote setting. Oh, I have this cool tool. And for your version control system, you should use Git, that is all. Nothing else, and I won't talk to you if you use Subversion or something crappy like that. GitHub, the old king, Bitbucket, works together with the Atlassian solution, or if you don't like those, you can just set up your own Git server. That works excellent. I'm cheap, so I did that. And the rest of the tools that we use in remote work and plugs very fine together. Slack. Who used Slack? Everybody. Well, these guys use Slack. Everybody else should use Slack. If you don't like Slack, there's Zendu, and there's HipChat, which is a part of your Atlassian solution, and there's something else, which probably suck since everybody uses Slack today. And Skype, yeah, it's not cool anymore, but it's really, really good too. That's what I think. Google Hangouts works for most of our communication needs. You can share your screen and you can do video chats up to, what is it now? 8, 12 persons? 8 still? It has some issues, which is why some up and coming. I like this Abril. It works as an alternative. And if you just want to share your screen, you can use Join Me. Google Docs, Google everything. I just mentioned Hangouts and use Google for everything else. That's my recommendation. It all works great. These are free to get started with, and then there's a premium. And if you have any other suggestions that I don't know anything about, you should tell me.
Yeah, there's one.
Yeah.
You know ZenHub?
ZenHub?
It's like a plugin for Chrome which converts your GitHub issue lists to a Kanban dashboard. It's awesome. So basically you have it in, so it's a plugin of Chrome, but it converts your GitHub into a perfect Scrum board.
Okay.
And they have storyboards you can estimate, you can create the columns you want. It's awesome. Because you have one environment, you don't have to switch mine between.
Right. I have heard of it. So the name was ZenHub?
ZenHub, yeah. For those who didn't, it works.
It's a good tool.
It's a Chrome plugin, yeah. It's paid, it's not too expensive, but it's good because you have one environment and it helps not to switch between Geo and
it's based on GitHub.
all the stuff is. I mean, it's GitHub. The only thing is a plugin which visualizes it as a perfect Scrum board.
It sounds like Waffle, and I think Waffle was not premium. It's free. So, I mean, but it's great. There's a lot of alternatives. I would say do a good assessment and then stick with the tool that you choose, because otherwise it gets kind of messy. And you don't want that. Yeah. I still have 5 minutes. Yeah, but I really wanted to open the floor up. I made some opinions. Much of what you've heard is opinions, and this is based on my experience. And no one looked too flustered, so I haven't been provoking you enough. Or you think I'm totally crazy and off base and don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. If things were ideal, I would really like to have 5 or 6 hours to talk about Scrum, but this is the fastest version I can do.
I shine the microphone so we can hear that should be here somewhere.
That one? It's right there. Okay. Oh.
Hola.
Ah. Yes. The first one to shoot, please.
Thanks. Hey.
Hey.
Do you have any experience for retrospectives remotely?
Yes. In the latest project, we combined the demo and retro. So we had it back to back. So first we did the demo, and that then in turn got into the retrospective. So it was sort of the same meeting. In the beginning, we presented, or the developers, of course, did their presentation of their work, iteration review, if you look in the manual, but we call it demo. They did it from home via the screen sharing tool. But you know, with one in Brazil and another one in Singapore or Jakarta or wherever it is, and people spread all over the world, and shaky connections, and people always traveling. We spend a lot of time at looking at asking, so when your connection's coming back. What we turned to was pre-recording the demos. So people would do a screen share. Sometimes they would narrate it while showing, but it was because everything is so remote. We like the demo to be more personal experience. So they narrated it. They narrated the screen share live, and that was quite interesting. I think now we're in a phase of the project where all these demos have a very limited demographic, if I can say it like that, because it's a very limited audience, because it's small things, small new features that only pertains to a certain department and some stakeholders, and the rest of the project team are not really, don't need to know this. So you're taking up a lot of time for a lot of people to demo some very special things. Demos are being done ad hoc towards the stakeholders that need them, and the product owners, of course. So yeah, we don't really do demos anymore. But see, the retrospective, it's so fantastic that you ask about it. How do you do a retrospective remote? It is one of the hardest things, because saying your honest opinion, everybody knows what a retrospective is, right? Okay, so that's where you say, over the last 2 weeks of this sprint, I think you did a crap job, or I did a fantastic job. It's actually 2 columns: what we did good, what we did well, and what could we do better. And giving critique on a phone to a client, because you know, it's your teammates, it's the same team, and it's just product owners, they pay the bills. And then saying, why didn't you write the user story or this ticket in a proper manner?
You're saying a product owner was part of the retrospective? That's...
What?
You say you were giving critique on a client, but the product owner is not part of the retrospective, right? Or with you it is?
We have the product owners. We have everybody on the retro.
Also the product owner?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, for practical reasons. Mm-hmm. So that
because
has been...
I always... I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I don't have short stories. I just wanted to make it, to finish it. So what we have done is actually last month, the entire team flew to Los Angeles to sit down with the client and get a personal, more intimate relationship. And then we did like a huge, we called it global retro. So it wasn't just a sprint retro, but for the entire project. We did it live. I was weird, because now we were facing each other and sitting down. I was like, first 1.5 hours, boom, 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 boom. Because you can, when you get that human reaction immediately when you talk to someone, and it's a little bit more sensitive, it was much easier, and you get a much more of a dialogue. That in turn has made it so that now that people are sitting at home again, they can give the critique, the retrospective, in a totally different manner. And there's so many more new views, coming to the table. So yeah, it's been a bit of an uphill climb.
How exactly would you do a remote retrospective? Is it just verbal? Do you write something down? Does everybody write something down? Do you use virtual post-its?
Yeah.
For example, like we just use a Google spread, like a Google Doc, where we have these columns and rows. So we kind of combine everybody writing down what they think about, and then they will explain it.
Yes, we have that offer too. I would say it ideally it should be a verbal discussion, because it should be a dialogue. Sometimes, especially since for me English is not my native language, maybe I phrase it wrong, and for many of the others it just stands there. And then it's safe for posterity, and it will never go away. But if you say something and somebody says, and you can quickly change it. But we have a Slack channel, so you can continuously provide some feedback. If you said the process where we went from the review stage to QA and back was wrong. That's pretty clinical. We don't expect people to do autopsies or anatomies of what went good and wrong over a sprint, but you know, just the honest feeling. Maybe we're a little bit more touchy-feely on our retro, but we don't have too much technical stuff. Or you have to. I work with Ignacio, so you can fact check. Microphone.
That's a funny question, because, for example, as a developer, we always have a trick for criticizing. That is, he's the team leader, so we have to say something hard. We have Kasper to say it for us. I'm sorry, we're using you sometimes, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now,
well, that was our little secret. So essentially, I get the responsibility as team lead because sometimes if a developer doesn't feel that his English or her English is sufficient, there you go. I do it because I have fantastic English. No, but you can sort of soften the blow, and then it gets, you know. You really have to, it's like the cheese, you have to mature with it, you have to find out who can you say this kind of a critique. Some you can just say all kinds of stuff to, and they will sense your, who it's coming from. But for others, yeah, it's a relationship that takes time to build.
I think for the most part, it's just a matter of on the speaker side, it's a matter of good manners. There's a lot of things that can be said if you say it the proper way. And the other side, but you need a team that can leave their ego of them behind the door and say, okay, we're not doing everything perfect, and that is perfectly okay. You need some kind of you can have, egomaniacs on this methodology. It's just that simple. You have to put your ego away and be ready to listen. Now, we people that is saying, no, there are things that didn't went well on this sprint, and there's no tragedy about it. We can work with that. Let's not do anything. You need a certain kind of people for that.
But that's one of the other drawbacks, because there's no code management in Scrum and there's no HR. So if somebody on your team is just a toxic team member and thinks everybody is crap, and the customer makes these stupid points, and why are we doing this? It should be in some other programming language, whatever. It's like, Scrum doesn't tell you how to manage that. And I would say, as a closing remark,
well, we have about we need a couple of minutes to move from this room to the next room, so maybe
Yeah.
last question. We can have the last question if anyone has it.
I can use that at the bar, but I was just curious. I'm perfectly okay with using story points instead of hours. I just don't understand why. I'm just curious about why story points instead using a Fibonacci sequence instead of hours.
Oh, wow. I can't answer that in 30 seconds. Story pointing is like a whole science.
I think my short answer would be that you have slower and faster team members, and they wouldn't be able to agree on hours, but they could agree on a virtual currency as story points are.
That's one thing. I just want to make a closing remark that Scrum can really help you set a boundary and a framework around your project work, but you have to make sure that you understand it's only a framework. It works great in remote settings, but it's something you have to work on. I'll be around. It's a huge topic. So thank you for this.